4 news team is spread out tonight with a look at conditions from Tropical Storm Julia.
First, let's check in with the Weather Authority's John Gahn with the latest on this disturbance. John, you told us earlier the tropical depression could turn into Julia tonight.
You know, we were all a little surprised. I pumped everybody up during the afternoon hours thinking that this was going to be named at 5 o'clock. It seemed very, very obvious. I'm sure there'll be some rethinking, if you will, of what just did transpire. But the good news is it's not a particularly strong system, but it does have potential for more hazardous conditions overnight tonight. It has potential for more potential water spouts and or tornadoes overnight. And I think the big heavy rain situation for Georgia is the real threat as we go through the next few hours. 11 o'clock advisory to Hurricane Center. Look at that. You don't see that too often. Kent, Joy, tropical storm right over Jacksonville. Now, the thinking from the Hurricane Center is that it'll continue to move on off on a track like this. I think that's a little bit too far to the west. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing kind of reforms just east of us and takes a track that's a little bit closer to the coast. So, again, this is the anticipated track over the next 24 hours. We'll see if that doesn't shift. Also, what will shift is the watches and warnings that are out there right now, as, again, what we see is that the watches are extending, or I should say the warnings, tropical storm warning, right there from Camden and Glenn counties into the coastal waters. That'll be the case as you go to bed tonight, early tomorrow morning. At this point in time, we don't have any additional warnings. The last hour, in fact, last 2 hours, we have had a number of severe thunderstorm warnings from Duval County all the way to Nassau County. But the worst of the rains are way off into the coastal waters, and here's how it looks on Live 5 Doppler radars right now. You can see the bands of rain. Here's one band arcing off towards the west. It's not as intense as it was a couple of hours ago when we had some very heavy rains and winds, as you saw in some of the video there, extending from St. Augustine. Then it kind of jumped out here towards southern parts of Ponte Vedra Beach, then into Ponte Vedra, then to Jax Beach, where the rains really came down hard. Number of big wind gusts there. These lightning strikes that you see off here in the coastal waters are probably associated with some winds of over 50 miles an hour. Now I'm going to show you how it looks as we put this into the last 2 hours of a loop. And you can see the system swirling right over Jacksonville right now. It's kind of neat to see the wind shift around. As it moves northward, it will again drive much of this rain out there towards Camden County and Glenn County, Georgia, which has already been pounded by a tremendous amount of rainfall. And that will be the new threat. It's not so much the wind because, again, the system is basically over land. Julia will just barely hang in there over the next 12 hours. But for Jacksonville, I'd say the worst is basically over for Jacksonville. There's your good news. Go to bed knowing tomorrow morning's going to be just fine. The impact on Jacksonville is pretty much done. School's going to be on. Bridge is going to stay open. Sun's going to come back out. At least in Jacksonville, the threat, like I said, with the tropical storm warning, with winds gusting up to 50 miles an hour now, translates Kent and Joy to Georgia, Camden, Glenn counties. That's where we'll find the biggest winds, especially along the coast, and the potential for some more heavy rains. They've already had more than 5 inches of rain in St. Simon's Island with some of the earlier feeder bands of rain, and that's when it was just a weak system. So we're not looking for a ton of more rain, but understand, when you get 5 inches of rain out there in St. Simon's Island, 1 more inch, 2 more inches, now we start shutting down roads, and I think there's already been a handful of those. We'll have more of that coming up in a few minutes. Joy?
All right, John, thank you.